Book 3, Chapter 3, Verse 35, continuing. This creator, or creative power, is of the form of the mind, just like the mind itself is of the form of the creator. Neither has any connection with any material substance. It is a mere creation of the imagination. All visible things are contained in the bosom of the mind, just as the lotus blossom resides in the seed of the lotus. Hence, there is no difference between the mental and visible appearance of things, nor has anyone anywhere ever doubted this. Whatever you see in a dream, whatever desires you have at heart, and all the ideals of your fancy, together with your ideas, notions, and impressions of phenomena, know that it is your mind that is the receptacle for them all. But the mind can choose to hold phenomena as desirable, making them as harmful to their beholder as an apparition is to a child. The idea of phenomena develops itself as the germ contained in the seed, and in its proper time and place, it becomes a large tree. If there is no rest with what is real, there can be no peace with phenomena that are full of troubles and give no solace to the mind. It is impossible for the feeling of the perception of phenomena to ever be lost to their perceiver, yet only its substance is said to constitute subsistence, is said to constitute liberation. So we have a very interesting few verses here to conclude chapter 3. And one thing that it's illustrating is how our lives, individual lives, and our minds are just another level of illusion, another reflection of something that is, I guess you would say, more real, which is the mind of the creator. But our mind, in the sense that it is the mind associated with this physical life, the mind that seems to be in the brain, that uses the physical brain as its hardware to translate thought, impressions, into physical movement of the body. That's what the brain really does. It's really its only function. It is to translate thoughts into some kind of more expressed physical activity, moving the hand, walking across the room, levitation, whatever it is. The mind using the brain, which is the nervous system, the hardware connecting the illusory consciousness in the three-dimensional universe to the illusory physical body in the three-dimensional universe. Now, this mind that's in our using our brain, it's a better way to talk about it, is a reflection of the mind of the creator. that is translating things going on, thoughts, impulses in the mind of the creator into the physical universe. Now it seems a little different, but on inspection, I think we'll see it's identical, just like an image in a mirror is basically identical to the form in front of the mirror, with some exceptions. The form in front of the mirror is truly three-dimensional in that perspective, but the form in the mirror is in a reflection, and it is only two-dimensional. But it has the appearance of three-dimensional. But as you can imagine, the difference between the appearance of three-dimensional and truly three-dimensional is quite vast. So when our brain and mind, our nervous system, operates, it has some limited field of operation. Our brain can basically move things with our hand. The hand moves, grabs something, and moves it. The mind of the creator, however, doesn't require a hand to move something in the three-dimensional world that it is working in. It just simply uses the energy of the mind to operate on the three-dimensional universe and create the change or movement. And we see that occasionally in people who have the ability to move things with their mind, bending spoons with their mind, those kinds of things. So we know that the creator has that ability as well. So we're utilizing that ability of the creator to make changes within this universe, three-dimensional universe, with his mind by creating the Sahasra Sirsha Brahma meditation group of 1,000. Because when that group is formed, all the brains and all the people in that group will be connected, operating like one brain, and that group will have the ability to do magical things that the creator has the ability to do now. Just like the creator can change anything in the universe with just a slight intention. Doesn't take a tremendous amount of effort and bulldozers and machines for the creator to put in a road across a piece of land. The creator could do that what would appear to us, very magically, just by intention. So we are engaged in a very interesting experiment, because we're going to use this compound brain that we're creating. We're creating a compound brain, 1,000 brains working together. And that compound brain and that compound mind that emerges from that combination is going to be able to do the same amazing magical things that the creator can do. So there's not going to be a lot of bulldozers and carpenters building our communities, are there? Think about that. We have to use bulldozers and carpenters to build the first community because we don't have a very large group yet. That mind that we have created is kind of small. It's just a very faint amount of creative ability. True creation, I mean literally making something appear in three-dimensional universe. We don't yet have that amount of capability. When we reach 1,000, then that all changes. And these universes, or these communities, will begin to appear all over the world, won't they? And people will look around and say, wow, that was like magic. How did that happen? I was just in that area, there was nothing but a grassy field and a stream. And now there are buildings and there are people coming to populate that community as if by magic. So we're operating right now in a very crude level of 3D creation in the process of creating the community in Mexico, the first community. But that's just because our group is small. But as we work to create this community and we build this group, it will reach that size in which that group can literally create all the rest of the communities. And your is helping us to understand exactly how that works. Pretty easy, actually, when you see that if you're having a lucid dream, you don't need bulldozers. If you need a road, you simply need the intention of a road in your dream, and a road appears. It can be a yellow brick road. It can be a road made of gold or paved with beautiful pearls. Or it can be a dirt road. It can be any kind of a road that you want, and it can appear in your lucid dream. It's literally going to be like that. Chapter 4, Nightfall, Creation of Objects. Valmiki describes, while Vashishta, the leading sage, was speaking without interruption, the entire assembly was intent upon listening to him with a fixed tone and tenor of their minds. The string of bells that warriors tie to their waists ceased to jingle. Everyone was motionless. Even the parrots in their cages ceased to warble or flutter. The ladies forgot their dalliance and remained quietly attentive to the lecture. Everyone in the royal hall was fixed in attention, as if they were paintings and statues. Only an hour remained before the closing of the day, and the sunbeams became agreeable to all. The busy bustle of the world was dwindling away with the glimmering light of the setting sun. The beds of full-blown lotuses exhaled their fragrance all around, and soft breezes were playing about as if to attend the audience. The sun glided away from his daily course and advanced to the top of the solitary mountain where it is set, as if he meant to reflect on all that he had heard. The shades of night began to cover the landscape. Frost began to spread over forest lands, as if they were cooled by the cooling lectures on philosophy. Now people failed to gather in all directions, as if they had availed themselves of the sage's instructions to abate the fervor of their exertion. All objects on earth cast their lengthened shadows as if they were stretching their necks to hear Vasishta preaching. Then the chamberlain humbly advanced to the monarch of the earth and begged to inform him that the time for the rituals of evening washing and service was about to expire. Upon this, sage Vasishta stopped his sweet speech and said, "Let what has been said, mighty king, be all for this day. I will resume my lecture and speak of other things tomorrow." The sage held his silence, and the king responded, "Be it so as you will," and rose from his seat. For his own good, he honored the godly sage and the other seers and Brahmins with due respects, and offerings of flowers, water, worthy honorary gift rewards, fees, gifts, and homage. Then rose the entire assembly with the kings and the sages. The gems and jewels that decked princes and people shed their luster on the faces of all. There was a commingled tinkling of bracelets and armlets as the throng mingled in their exit, mixed with the flashes of the necklaces and brocades that decorated their bodies. The jewels attached to the tufts and crests of hair on the tops of their heads emitted a jingling sound, resembling the humming of bees amid their flowery braids. The face of the sky, shining on all sides with a purple color, reflected by the golden ornaments on their persons, seemed as if it was pleased with the wise sayings and sense of the sage. Celestial visitors vanished into the air, and earthly guests retired to their homes on earth, where they performed their evening rituals. In the meantime, Black Night made her appearance on earth, and like a bashful young maiden, withdrew to the closest separate from the rest of mankind. The Lord of the day passed to shine on all lands, for truly it is the avowed duty of every good person to give the benefit of equal light to all. The shade of evening veiled all sides and uplifted the canopy of the starry sphere on high, which, like the spring atmosphere, was emblazoned with starlight Kinsuka flowers. The birds of air took to their rest in the hollows of mango trees or on the tops of kadamba trees, like honest people of fair dealing, find their rest in the purity of their minds and the contriteness of their inner hearts. The skirts of the clouds, tinged with red by slanting beams of the setting sun, and with the shade of yellow color upon them, decorated the western hills with vests of yellow garb, while the sky crowned their heads with gemming wreaths of starry groups. The gods of evening, having departed, after receiving their homage, evening prayers, was followed by her train of dark night shades, appearing as black-bodied fiends with etalas. A gentle and cooling breeze was blowing, softened by the dewdrops of night, and opening the petals of Munda lotus flowers, bearing their fragrance all around. A thick gloom covered the face of nature, and the stars were hidden under the mists of night. All the quarters of the skies, with their overhanging loose and hairy mists, seemed like the faces of widows, shrouded by the dark, disheveled hair of mourning. Now appeared the moist orb of the moon, in her ambrosial form in the milky ocean of the sky, to moisten the mundane heat with her milk-white beams. On her rising, the thick mists of darkness fled from the eastern hemisphere and became invisible in the air, just like the darkness of ignorance is put to flight from the minds of monarchs when they attend to wise sayings. Then the sages and seers, the rulers and priests of the people, took their rest in their respective beds, as the words of Vashishta, full of meaning, rested in the recesses of their hearts. As the thick darkness of night, resembling the dark complexion of death, receded from the arena of the skies, the dewy dawn of day with her slow-moving pace followed close on its footsteps. Twinkling stars disappeared from the sky, just like flowers on trees are blown away by wind and strewn on the ground like the falling stars of heaven. The sun became visible to the eyes. His rays roused them from sleep, just as the new rising faculty of reason becomes conspicuous in the minds of enlightened great souls. Fragments of clouds shining with sunlight spread a yellow covering over the eastern hills, which were still decorated with strings of stars pendant on the crests of their lofty heads. After the performance of their morning services, all the terrestrial and celestial congress assembled again in the royal hall, in the order and manner of the day before. The full assembly took their seats and sat without moving, like a lake covered with lotus remains calm after a storm. Then Ram addressed Vashishta, the most elegant of sages, with honey-like words about the subject under investigation. He said, "Tell me plainly, O venerable sir, about the form of the mind, which developed itself in all things of the universe as they were its offshoots." Vashishta replied, "Brahma, the mind has no form that anyone can see, other than its name. It has nothing substantial, only the formless and irremovable void. The mind, as an entity, Sat, is not situated in any part of the outer body, nor is it within the cavity of the heart or brain, but know it, O Rama, to be situated everywhere as the all-encompassing void. This world is produced from it, and it is like the waters of the mirage. It manifests itself in the forms of fleeting thoughts, which are as false as the appearance of secondary moons in the mist. The thinking principle is generally believed to be something between the positive and negative, or real and unreal. You must know it as such and no other. That which represents of all objects is called the mind. There is nothing else to which the term mind is applicable. Know that will, volition, is the same as the mind, and that the mind is no different from the will, just as fluidity is the same with water, and as there is no difference between air and its motion and wind. For wherever there is any will, there also is that attribute of the mind. Nobody has ever taken will and mind to be different things. The representation of any object, whether real or unreal, is mind, and that is to be known as Brahma, the great father of all. The incorporeal soul in the body is called the mind, and it has in itself the knowledge of all senses and everlasting ideas of the physical world. That is, the sentient and thinking soul is the same as the mind. The learned have given different names like ignorance, intellect, mind, bondage, sin, and darkness to the visible appearance of creation. The mind has no form other than a receptacle and reflector of ideas about the visible world, which, I repeat, is no new creation, but a reflection of the mind. The visible world is situated in an atom of the great mind. Just like the germ of the lotus plant is contained within its seed, the visible world is as innate in the all-knowing mind as light is inherent in sunbeams, and velocity and fluidity are innate in winds and liquids. But the visionary ideas of phenomena are all false and fleeting in the minds of their observers, as the form of a jewel in gold or water in a mirage, and they are as wrong as the foundation of a castle in the air, or seeing a city in a dream. Because phenomena appear to be real to their observer, O Ram, I will cleanse them from your mind like dirt from a mirror. Just like the disappearance of an appearance makes the observer no longer an observer, know that this is what happens when the mind is in a state of separation or detachment from whatever is real or unreal in the world. Having arrived at this state, all the passions of the soul and the desires of the mind will be at rest. Like torrents of rivers at the calm that follows the stillness of the wind. It is impossible that things having the forms of space, earth, and air will appear the same in the clear light of reason as they do to our ordinary sight. Thus, when the observer comes to know the unreality of the phenomena of the three worlds, as well as of his own entity, then his pure soul attains knowledge of the solitude of divine existence by volume. Such a mind reflects the image of God in itself as in a mirror, while all others are like blocks of stone, incapable of receiving any reflection at all. After suppression of the sense of I and you, and the error of the reality of the outer world, the observer becomes withdrawn and remains in his sitting posture without seeing external things. Ram replied, if I cannot suppress my perception of entity or an entity as unable to become a non-entity, or if I am unable to see phenomena as non-existent, then tell me, O Holy One, how can I to uproot this disease of our eagerness for phenomena from the mind, a disease which bewilders understanding and afflicts us with a series of troubles? Vasishtha replied, now hear my advice, Rama, for the suppression of this illusion of phenomena, whereby it will surely die away and become utterly extinct. Know, Ram, that nothing that is can ever be destroyed or become extinct. Though you remove it, yet it will leave its seed or trace of mind. This seed is the memory of such things, which reopens the ideas of the phenomena in the mind, expanding themselves in the fallacious notions of the forms of big worlds and skies, mountains, and oceans. These fallacious notions, called faults and defects of understanding, are obstacles in the way to liberation, but they do not affect the sages who are liberated. So it's very clear what Vasishtha is describing here, isn't it? He's describing karmic traces. It's the karmic traces that are obstacles in the way to liberation. But the karmic traces don't affect those who are liberated. And one way to look at that is this liberation, enlightenment, moksha, it arises in stages or levels. And the way it's possible is that it is possible to balance a concentration of karmic traces in such a way that it's like a tunnel is bored in the mountain ranges of karmic traces. Why? Why do we need such a tunnel? Because on the other side, underlying all the karmic traces, are the divine karmic traces, the will of God, the divine blueprint. If we can perceive that, what we're perceiving is Sat Yuga. We're perceiving the pure reflection of Goloka that manifested in the three-dimensional universe as our world, as our universe. And that is the beginning of liberation. And what we're liberated from? We're liberated from the illusions that we have installed with our own accumulation of individual karmic traces. So we have illusions installed in an illusion, and we have to peel back these layers of illusions one at a time till we reach that which is eternal. So moksha level 1, we peel back one level of the illusion. And we say, okay, we are now liberated from the effects of karmic traces that have been the cause of our three-dimensional physical body being created in the first place. Without these individual karmic traces, there'd be no body. There are divine karmic traces for human bodies, but it is the individual karmic traces that cause the human bodies to manifest, come into existence. Without these individual karmic traces, there would be no physical human bodies. Chapter 65, or verse 65. Again, if the world and all other phenomena have real existence, they cannot confer liberation on anyone because phenomena, whether they are situated within or without us, are themselves perishable. Learn therefore this solemn truth, which will be fully explained to you in the subsequent parts of this work, that all things appearing in the forms of emptiness, elementary forms, the world, and I and you are non-entities. They have no meaning. Whatever is seen as apparent is nothing other than the undecaying and imperishable essence of the Supreme Brahman himself. The abundance of creation is an expansion of his fullness, and the quiet of the universe rests in his quietude. It is his quality of sky that is the substance of emptiness, and it is his immensity that underlies the immense cosmos. Nothing visible is real. There is neither spectator or spectacle here. There is nothing like emptiness or solidity in nature. All this is only a piece of extended intelligence. The Ram replied, the proverbs about the son of a barren woman grinding stones, the horns of a rabbit, the dancing of a hill with its arms extended, oil flowing from sand, marble dolls reading books, clouds in a painting roaring, and other similar adages apply to your words on the reality of an unreal essence of God. I see this world to be full of disease, death, trouble, mountains, emptiness, and other things. How is it, sage, that you tell me that they do not exist, so that I may be certain of this truth? Tell me, sage, why you describe the world as unsubstantial, unproduced, and non-existent. The sister replied, "Know, Rama, that I do not speak contradictions. Hear me explain how reality appears as real, like the proverb of the son of a barren woman. All this was unproduced before and did not exist in the beginning of creation. It comes to appearance from the mind like a city in a dream. The mind also was not produced in the beginning of creation and was an unreality itself. Therefore, hear me tell you how we came to the notion of it. This unreal mind by itself spreads the false and changing scenes of the visible world, just as in a dream we see ever-changing unrealities as true. Then the mind exerts its will in the fabrication of the body and spreads the magic sense of the phenomenal world far and wide. The mind, by the potential of its fluctuation, has many actions of its own, such as expansion, jumping, motion, craving, wandering, driving and seizing, and many other voluntary efforts. So this is the task of Vasishta, to explain what is a dream consist of. And so he gives us many different angles of looking at this phenomena that we, without using our critical faculties, without transcending and becoming the silent witness, we cannot see the world as a dream. And he knows this, but what he wants to do is give us this map. Here's where the reality of the world exists. Here's how to get there. The city is over there to the east, and we have to drive this road. We can't see the city now, but as we continue to drive this road, we will soon see the skyline. And right now, maybe we can't see the illusory nature of the world, but we know it's there. And if we just keep pointing our direction, we will soon be able to see it. It will become apparent to us, like the skyline of the city. We only have to become the silent witness. It's a very simple step.